The night has not fully gone. The sky still holds a deep, gentle blue, stretched wide above the silent land. It is not dark in a heavy way, but soft, like a thin blanket laid carefully over the world. The stars are fading, one by one, not disappearing all at once, but slowly stepping back as the morning begins to approach. The air is cool. It rests lightly over the wide waters of the Nile, where the surface moves in long, slow lines. The river does not rush. It never hurries. It carries its waters forward in a steady, patient way, just as it has done for countless days before this one. Along the edge of the river, the land begins to rise. And there, in quiet stillness, stands the temple. It is large, but it does not feel heavy. Its stone walls seem to belong to the earth itself, as if they have always been there. The outer walls are tall and smooth in some places, worn and textured in others. The surface carries marks from wind, from sun, from time itself passing gently over it. At the entrance, two massive towers rise into the fading night sky. They stand like silent guardians, their wide faces carved with figures that are difficult to see clearly in the dim light. Kings, gods, offerings, processions, all captured in still lines that wait for the sun to reveal them again. Between these towers, there is a wide gateway. It is open. Beyond it lies the first courtyard, still wrapped in shadow. Nothing moves, or almost nothing. Inside, the temple breathes in its own quiet way. The stone holds the coolness of the night. The air is still, carrying only the faintest scent of dust, of old incense, and something dry and natural, like reeds left in the sun long ago. In a small chamber near the inner walls, a priest begins to wake. He does not rise suddenly. There is no sharp movement, no sign of urgency. His eyes open slowly, adjusting to the dim light around him. For a moment, he remains still, listening not for anything specific, but simply aware of the quiet. This is how each day begins. Not with sound, but with presence. He sits up gently, folding his legs beneath him. The mat on which he rested is simple, woven from plant fibers, slightly rough but familiar. It has been used many times before, shaped by the quiet repetition of days and nights. He runs his hand across it once, slowly. Then he begins to fold it. Each movement is careful, not because it is difficult, but because it matters. The edges are aligned. The surface is smoothed. It becomes small again, neat and ordered, and is placed beside the wall. The chamber remains silent. Outside, the sky continues to change. A faint line of pale gold now stretches along the horizon. It is soft at first, barely noticeable, but it grows slowly, spreading upward, touching the edges of clouds that are thin and far away. The priest stands. The stone beneath his feet is cool, almost cold, but he does not react to it. He has felt this many times before. It is part of the morning, just as much as the light, just as much as the silence. He steps into the corridor. The passage is narrow, its walls close on either side. Carvings run along the surface, rows of figures that tell stories without sound. In the dim light, they seem to shift slightly, not truly moving, but changing as shadows soften and fade. He walks slowly. His steps are quiet, barely making a sound against the smooth floor. The temple does not echo. It absorbs sound, holding it gently, allowing only the softest traces to remain. As he moves forward, another priest appears from a different passage. They do not speak. They do not greet each other. There is no need. Their understanding is shared, carried silently between them. Each one knows what must be done, and when. The rhythm of the day is already set, like the flow of the river outside. More figures begin to appear. From small chambers, from shaded corners, from spaces hidden within the thick stone walls. They emerge slowly, joining the quiet movement of the morning. No one gathers in a single place. No one gives instructions. And yet, everything begins. One priest moves toward a basin. It is made of stone, wide and shallow, filled with water that was brought before dawn. The surface is still, reflecting the faint light above like a pale mirror. He bends slightly. His hands enter the water. The coolness spreads across his skin, gentle but clear. He lifts the water and lets it fall again, over his fingers, his wrists. The motion is repeated, not hurried, not exaggerated. Just steady, careful, and complete. He washes his face. The water runs down slowly, tracing quiet paths along his skin, falling back into the basin with soft, almost silent drops. Purification is not a single act. It is a series of small moments, each one connected to the next. Nearby, another priest prepares oil. The container is small, carved from stone, its surface smooth from use. He opens it carefully. A soft scent begins to rise, warm, slightly sweet, and grounded. It spreads slowly through the air, blending with the coolness of the morning. The courtyard begins to take shape. As the light grows, the outlines of the columns become clearer. They stand tall and strong, their surfaces covered in carvings that wrap around them like quiet stories. The tops of the columns are wide, shaped like open flowers, though in the dim light, they appear simply as dark forms against the brightening sky. The first sunlight touches them. It does not flood the space. It arrives slowly. A thin line of gold appears along the upper edges, then begins to move downward, revealing color, texture, detail. The carvings become visible again, the lines sharper now, the figures more defined. The temple does not wake suddenly. It unfolds. A young attendant enters through a side passage. He carries a woven basket, held carefully in both hands. Inside are small loaves of bread, round and simple, their surfaces slightly cracked from baking. A faint warmth still lingers in them, and with it, the quiet scent of grain. He places the basket on a low stone table. Then he steps back. He does not speak. He does not wait. He simply becomes part of the stillness again. Deeper within the temple, beyond the open space of the courtyard, there is another area. It is darker. More enclosed. The walls are closer. The air is heavier, not unpleasant, but full, as if it holds something that the open courtyard does not. At the end of a narrow passage, there is a doorway. It is smaller than the grand entrance outside, but it feels more important in a quiet way. The space beyond it is not meant for many. Inside, a statue rests. It stands on a raised platform, carved from stone, shaped with great care. The form is still, perfectly balanced, dressed in cloth that has been placed and replaced many times. The fabric hangs in clean lines, soft against the hard surface beneath. The face is calm. The eyes, though made of stone, seem to look forward with a steady presence. This is the inner chamber. The most quiet place in the temple. A senior priest approaches. His steps are slower now. Not because he is tired, but because the space asks for it. The closer he comes, the more the movement of the world seems to fade. The sounds from the courtyard do not reach here. Even the light feels different, softer, more focused. In his hands, he carries a small tray. On it are items arranged with care. A folded cloth. A container of oil. A small dish filled with a fine powder. Each object has its place, and each will be used in its own moment. He stops at the doorway. He does not enter immediately. For a brief time, he stands still, breathing slowly, waiting, not for permission, but for alignment for the moment to feel complete. Then, gently, he steps inside. The chamber receives him without a sound. The air is cool and still. The statue remains as it always has, unmoving, present. He places the tray down. And for a moment, there is nothing but quiet. Then, slowly, carefully, the first ritual of the day begins. The chamber remains dim. Only a narrow beam of light enters from above, falling softly across the stone floor and touching the lower edge of the statue. The rest is held in shadow, not deep, but gentle and steady, like a place that prefers quiet over brightness. The senior priest stands before the statue. He does not move right away. There is no urgency in his posture. His hands rest lightly at his sides. His breathing is slow and even, matching the stillness of the chamber itself. This moment is not empty. It is full, but in a quiet way. He begins by lowering his head slightly. Not deeply. Just enough to mark the beginning. Then, with careful movement, he reaches for the folded cloth on the tray. The fabric is soft, light in his hands. He unfolds it slowly, making sure it does not touch the floor, letting it open fully, revealing its clean surface. The statue is still dressed from the night before. The cloth that covers it has settled over the hours, resting in gentle folds. It carries the faint scent of oil and incense, absorbed slowly over many days. The priest lifts the cloth away. He does this carefully, not pulling, not rushing. The fabric moves slowly, separating from the stone, rising into the air before being folded again and placed aside. The surface beneath is revealed. Cool stone. Smooth. Untouched by light for many hours. This is part of the ritual. The god, in this quiet way, is awakened. Not suddenly. Not with sound. But through small, steady actions. The priest takes a small vessel of water. He pours a little into his hand. Then, gently, he lets it fall over the surface of the statue. The water moves slowly, tracing lines down the stone, catching the faint light, then disappearing as it reaches the base. He repeats this again. And again. Each motion is the same. Measured. Calm. There is no variation, no need for it. Repetition itself is part of the meaning. The chamber remains silent. No words are spoken. Only the soft movement of water, the faint shift of cloth, the quiet presence of the priest and the statue. After the washing, he reaches for the oil. He opens the container. The scent spreads more clearly now, warm, grounding, slightly sweet. It fills the small space without overwhelming it, settling into the air like a memory. He places a small amount onto his fingers. Then, slowly, he begins to apply it to the statue. The motion is gentle. He does not press hard. He moves his hands across the surface in smooth, even strokes, following the shape of the form, respecting its lines, its stillness. This is not decoration. It is care. The oil gives a faint sheen to the stone, catching the light just enough to reveal its texture more clearly. The statue, though unchanged, begins to feel present in a different way. Not alive, but attended to. Scene. The priest steps back slightly. Just a small movement. Enough to observe. Enough to allow the moment to settle. Outside, the light continues to grow. But inside the chamber, time moves differently. Slow. Steady. Almost without measure. And the ritual continues, just as it always has. The chamber remains quiet after the first careful movements. The oil has settled into the surface of the statue, leaving a faint, gentle glow where the light touches it. The air is still, carrying that soft scent that now feels fully present, as if it has always belonged to the room. The senior priest does not rush to the next step. He allows a small pause. Not long, but enough. Enough for the actions to rest in place. Then, slowly, he turns toward the tray again. There are small items waiting. Simple things. But each one has its purpose. He lifts a small dish, filled with finely ground powder. Its color is pale, almost like sand, but softer. It has been prepared carefully, crushed and refined until it is smooth. He takes a small amount between his fingers. Then, with steady hands, he applies it lightly to the surface of the statue. The motion is delicate. Barely touching. The powder settles gently, clinging to the stone in thin layers. It does not change the form, only softens the appearance, giving the surface a quiet, even tone. This is done slowly. Repeated in small sections. Each movement the same as the last. There is no need to hurry. Outside, the temple continues its gradual awakening. In the courtyard, more light now fills the space. The shadows that once stretched across the stone floor have begun to shorten. The carved figures on the columns are clearer now, their shapes fully visible in the growing brightness. A few attendants move quietly along the edges. They carry small bundles, jars, and tools. Their steps are light. Their movements are practiced. Each one follows a path that has been walked many times before. Near the outer wall, a pair of workers begin to prepare a larger table. It is made of stone, low and wide. They wipe its surface with cloths dipped in water, removing any dust that may have settled during the night. The motion is slow, even, careful. Cleanliness is part of the rhythm. Nothing is left to chance. The basket of bread remains where it was placed earlier. Now, another attendant approaches it. He kneels slightly and begins to arrange the loaves. They are placed in neat rows, not touching, each one given its own space. The warmth has faded slightly, but the scent remains, soft and steady. Nearby, another tray is brought forward. This one holds fruit. Figs, small and dark. Dates, their surfaces smooth and slightly sticky. And a few pieces of something more delicate, perhaps cut from a larger fruit, arranged with quiet care. The colors are gentle in the morning light. Nothing bright. Nothing sharp. Only soft tones that blend into the calm of the courtyard. Back in the inner chamber, the priest continues. The powder has been applied. The surface of the statue is prepared. Now, he reaches for a fresh cloth. This one is different. Finer. Carefully folded. He lifts it with both hands, unfolding it slowly, allowing the fabric to open fully before him. Then, with a motion that is both simple and precise, he begins to dress the statue once again. The cloth is placed over the shoulders. It falls in straight lines, guided gently by his hands. He adjusts it slightly, making sure it rests evenly, without folds that are too deep or uneven. Each adjustment is small. Barely noticeable. But each one matters. The statue is not changed. And yet, it feels renewed. This is the quiet center of the morning. A moment where nothing outside intrudes. No sound from the courtyard reaches here. No movement disturbs the stillness. Only the slow continuation of care. Once the cloth is set, the priest reaches for a small container. Inside is a dark substance, thick and smooth. He opens it carefully. The scent is deeper now. Richer. Something that lingers longer in the air. He takes a small amount and places it near the base of the statue. Not directly on it, but close enough. An offering. Simple. Unspoken. He steps back again. This time, he remains still for longer. The ritual is not yet complete. But this part has reached its quiet pause. Outside, the temple is now fully touched by morning light. The sky above the courtyard is clear. A soft blue, wide, and open. The tops of the walls catch the sunlight, while the lower sections remain cooler, shaded by the tall structures around them. The attendants continue their work. Water is carried. Cloth is folded. Trays are arranged. Everything moves slowly, but with purpose. There is no confusion. No wasted motion. Each person knows their place within the day. Near the entrance, a faint sound begins. Not loud. Not sharp. A low, steady tone. It comes from a simple instrument, held by one of the temple workers. The sound is drawn out, soft, almost blending into the air itself. It does not call attention. It simply exists. A signal, perhaps. Or just a continuation of the rhythm. Back inside, the senior priest lowers his head once more. The first offering has been made. The statue has been washed, prepared, and dressed. The space has been cared for. The moment has settled. He lifts the tray again. There are still more actions to come. But they will unfold slowly. As everything does here. The light now fills the courtyard completely. What was once shadowed is now visible in full detail. The stone floor shows its subtle variations, small marks, slight changes in color, places where countless footsteps have worn the surface smooth over many years. The columns stand tall and clear. Their carvings now fully revealed. Figures of gods with calm expressions. Kings standing in still poses. Offerings held in steady hands. Scenes of movement, captured in lines that never change. And yet, as the sunlight shifts slowly across them, they seem to move in their own quiet way. The temple is no longer waking. It is awake. But even in this state, it remains calm. There is no rush of activity. No loud gathering of voices. Only a steady increase in presence. More workers enter through the outer gate. They carry larger containers now. Clay jars filled with water. Bundles of reeds. Small sacks of grain. They move along the edges of the courtyard, placing these items in designated areas. Each object has its place. Nothing is set down randomly. Near one corner, a small group begins preparing a space for grinding grain. A flat stone is placed carefully on the ground. Another stone, rounded and smooth, is held in the hands. Grain is poured onto the flat surface. Then, slowly, the grinding begins. The motion is repetitive. Forward. Back. Forward. Back. The sound is soft. A low, steady rhythm that blends with the quiet of the temple. Nearby, another worker prepares a small fire. It is not large. Just enough to warm, to cook. The flames rise gently, fed by small pieces of wood. The smoke drifts upward in thin lines, disappearing quickly into the open air above. The scent of it is faint, dry, clean. It mixes with the scent of bread, of oil, of stone warmed by sunlight. Everything blends together. Nothing stands out. This is how the temple lives. Not through loud moments, but through many small ones. Back in the inner areas, the priests begin to move between spaces. Some carry small objects. Others simply walk, their paths crossing without interruption. There is a quiet understanding that guides them. One priest pauses near a wall carving. Not to study it, but simply as part of his movement. His hand briefly touches the stone. Then he continues. In another passage, an attendant sweeps the floor. The tool is simple, made of bundled reeds. The motion is gentle, careful not to disturb the quiet. Dust is gathered slowly, moved aside, removed. Nothing is left unattended. The temple is not only a place of ritual. It is also a place of care. Every surface, every object, every small space, all are part of the whole, and all are maintained with the same steady attention. As the sun rises higher, the light begins to change again. It becomes warmer, softer in some places, stronger in others. Shadows shift slowly across the ground. The day moves forward, without urgency, without pause. And within the temple, life continues in its calm, unbroken rhythm. The sun has now arisen higher into the sky. Its light no longer enters the temple in thin, angled lines, but spreads more evenly across the courtyard. The warmth begins to settle into the stone, slowly replacing the coolness of the early morning. The air remains gentle, not yet heavy, still holding a quiet balance between night and day. The temple continues without interruption. Nothing begins suddenly. Nothing changes all at once. Instead, one moment leans into the next, as softly as breath. Near the prepared stone tables, the offerings are arranged more carefully now. The bread that was placed earlier has cooled completely. Its surface is firm, its scent mild and comforting. Each loaf is checked, turned slightly, adjusted so that it sits evenly among the others. The fruit is arranged beside it. Figs are placed in small clusters, their dark skins catching a soft sheen of light. Dates are lined in gentle rows, their shapes similar, but not identical. Each one carries its own slight difference, its own small mark of the earth from which it came. A bowl of water is added. The surface is still, clear, reflecting the pale sky above in a faint, shifting way. A priest approaches the table. He moves slowly, his steps measured, his hands empty for now. When he reaches the table, he pauses, allowing his presence to settle into the space. There is no announcement, no signal, only a quiet beginning. He lifts a single loaf of bread. Not quickly, not slowly, simply with care. He holds it for a moment, then places it back down in a slightly different position. This movement is small, almost unnoticed, but it marks the start of the offering. Other priests begin to gather nearby. They do not stand close together. They leave space between them, each one holding their own quiet stillness. Their eyes rest on the table, on the bread, on the fruit, on the water. Everything is simple, and everything is enough. From a distance, a soft sound returns. The same low tone from earlier. Drawn out, steady, almost blending into the air itself. It does not rise or fall sharply. It remains even. A single line of sound, stretching gently through the courtyard. The priest nearest the table lowers his head slightly. His hands move slowly. He takes a small piece of bread and lifts it. The motion is steady. He does not look around. His focus remains on the offering itself. He raises the bread just enough, then lowers it again. This is repeated. Not for display. Not for others. But as part of a pattern that has no beginning and no end. The others remain still. Some close their eyes. Others keep them open, resting their gaze softly on the table. There are no spoken words. At least none that carry outward. If there are sounds, they are quiet, internal, almost like breath shaped into form. The offering is not given through speech alone. It is given through action. Through presence. Through repetition. After a time, the priest moves to the fruit. He lifts a fig. Turns it slightly in his hand. Then places it back among the others. Each item is touched. Not all at once. One at a time. Each receiving its own moment. The bowl of water is lifted last. He holds it carefully. The surface shifts slightly, small ripples forming and settling again. He tilts it just enough for the light to catch it. Then returns it to its place. The offering is complete. Or rather, this part of it is complete. Nothing is removed. Nothing is taken away. The food remains where it is. Still. Untouched by consumption. Yet changed in its meaning. It is no longer just bread. Just fruit. Just water. It has passed through a moment of attention. Of care. And in that quiet way, it becomes something more. The priests step back slowly. Not all at once. Each one returning to their path, their place within the temple. The sound fades. The air settles again. And the courtyard returns to its steady rhythm. As the morning continues, the temple reveals another layer of its life. Not the rituals at the center, but the steady work that supports them. Along the outer edges, beyond the main courtyard, there are smaller spaces. Rooms partially open to the air. Passages that connect one area to another. These are the places where the daily tasks unfold quietly. A group of workers sit near a low wall. In front of them are baskets filled with grain. They sort through it slowly, removing small stones, separating pieces that are broken. The motion is repetitive, gentle. Their hands move with familiarity, without needing to look closely at each piece. They speak very little. And when they do, their voices are soft, almost blending into the sound of their work. Nearby, another group prepares cloth. Lengths of fabric are unrolled, examined, then folded again with care. Edges are smoothed. Small imperfections are noted, adjusted where possible. The cloth will be used later. For dressing statues. For covering tables. For many small purposes that repeat throughout the day. In a shaded corner, a young attendant cleans a set of small vessels. Each one is made of clay or stone. Simple in shape. He rinses them one by one, using water carried from the river. The water runs over their surfaces, removing dust, leaving them clean and ready. He places them upside down to dry. Arranged in a neat line. Nothing out of place. Further along, the grinding of grain continues. The sound remains steady. Forward. Back. Forward. Back. It does not change. It does not stop. It becomes part of the background of the temple, as constant as the movement of air. The fire that was lit earlier now burns steadily. Small pots are placed over it. Inside, simple food is prepared. Nothing elaborate. Nothing complex. Grain, water, perhaps small additions of herbs. The scent rises slowly, mixing with everything else. There is no sharpness to it. Only warmth. A quiet sense of nourishment. In another space, a senior worker oversees the movement of supplies. He does not speak loudly. He does not give commands in a forceful way. He simply gestures, points, adjusts. Others respond without hesitation. Each person understands the rhythm. The flow of tasks moves without interruption. Back in the main areas, the priests continue their paths. Some return briefly to the inner chamber. Others remain in the courtyard. Their movements are not random. They follow patterns that repeat from day to day, from season to season. Each step connected to something that came before, and something that will follow. The temple, in this way, is not divided between sacred and ordinary. All of it is connected. The washing of a vessel, the folding of cloth, the placing of bread, the quiet standing before a statue. Each action holds the same steady importance. Each one supports the whole. As the sun rises higher, the light becomes stronger. The shadows shorten. The warmth deepens. But inside the temple walls, the feeling remains the same. Calm. Measured. Unbroken. And the day continues to unfold, one quiet moment at a time. Deeper within the temple, away from the open courtyard and the steady movement of workers, there are spaces that remain almost untouched by the changes of the day. The light here does not shift quickly. It enters slowly, through narrow openings, or sometimes not at all. These chambers are cool. The air feels thicker, not heavy, but settled, as if it has rested here for a long time without disturbance. The walls are close, covered in carvings that are softer in detail, worn slightly by time, yet still clear enough to hold their meaning. Figures stand in quiet rows. Offerings are shown again and again. Hands extended. Heads bowed. The same gestures repeated across the surface. In one such chamber, a single priest sits. He is not performing a visible ritual. He is not preparing objects. He simply sits. His posture is steady. His hands rest lightly on his knees. His eyes are lowered, not closed, but not focused on anything in particular. The silence here is deeper. Not empty, but full in a way that does not require movement. Time passes differently in this space. There is no clear marker of its movement. No shadow crossing the floor. No sound rising and falling. Only stillness. Occasionally, another priest passes through the doorway. Their steps are soft. They do not pause. They do not speak. They simply move through, continuing along their path. The seated priest does not react. He remains as he is. Part of the space itself. In another chamber, a small statue rests on a lower platform. Less prominent than the one in the inner sanctuary, but cared for in its own quiet way. A young attendant enters. He carries a small cloth and a container of water. His movements are careful. He approaches the statue slowly, as he has been taught. He sets the items down, then begins to clean. The cloth moves gently across the surface. removing dust that has settled during the night and early morning. The water is used sparingly. Just enough. Never too much. Each motion is repeated. Consistent. Even. The statue remains unchanged. And yet, like all things in the temple, it is maintained through these small acts. The attendant finishes. He steps back. Looks briefly at his work. Then gathers his items and leaves. The chamber returns to stillness. Nothing remains but the quiet presence of the statue and the cool air around it. These inner spaces are not meant for many. They are not filled with activity. They exist as part of the deeper rhythm of the temple. A rhythm that does not depend on movement, but on continuity. On the steady passing of time without disruption. And as the day continues outside, these chambers remain the same. Holding their silence. Holding their calm. Holding a stillness that does not change. The sun has now reached its highest place. It rests above the temple without movement, casting a steady, even light across the stone. The shadows that once stretched long in the morning have drawn inward, gathering close to the bases of walls and columns. The contrast softens. The shapes become simpler. The heat begins to settle. Not sharply. Not all at once. But slowly, like a quiet layer placed over everything. The stone floors, once cool beneath bare feet, now carry a gentle warmth. The walls hold the sunlight in their surfaces, absorbing it, keeping it close. The air itself feels thicker, though still calm, still without urgency. Movement within the temple begins to change. It does not stop, but it slows. The steady rhythm remains, though each action becomes slightly more measured, slightly more spaced apart. Steps are softer. Hands move with a little more care, conserving energy without breaking the flow of the day. In the courtyard, the work continues. But the pace has softened. The grinding of grain goes on, though the motion is less frequent. The workers pause between movements, allowing their hands to rest briefly before beginning again. The sound, once steady and continuous, now rises and falls gently, like a quiet breath. Near the small cooking fires, the flames burn lower. The food that was prepared earlier has been set aside. Simple bowls rest on the stone, covered lightly with cloth to protect them from dust. The scent lingers faintly, but no longer grows stronger. Some workers sit, not fully resting, but allowing their bodies to become still. They sit near the walls, where the shadow offers a cooler place. Their backs lean gently against the stone. Their hands rest in their laps or at their sides. They do not speak much. There is no need. The silence of midday is different from the silence of morning. It is heavier. More settled. It does not invite movement. It allows stillness. In a shaded corner, a young attendant pours water into a shallow basin. The sound is soft. A quiet flow, followed by stillness. Another approaches, dipping his hands into the water, letting it run over his fingers, his wrists. The coolness is brief, but enough. The water remains, reflecting a small piece of the bright sky above. Within the deeper parts of the temple, the air remains cooler. The inner chambers hold their calm. The senior priests move through them slowly, their steps even more deliberate now. Their presence is steady, unchanged by the heat outside. In the inner sanctuary, the statue stands as it did in the morning. Dressed. Cared for. Silent. A priest enters. He carries nothing this time. His hands are empty. He stands before the statue and remains there. Not performing a new ritual. not adjusting anything. Simply present. Time passes. It is difficult to measure. The light in this chamber does not reveal its movement clearly. The small beam from above shifts only slightly, barely noticeable unless watched with great attention. The priest does not watch it. He does not watch anything in particular. He remains. The stillness here is complete. Outside, the brightness continues. The courtyard is filled with light that feels almost unmoving. The sky above is pale now, the deeper blue of morning softened by the strength of the sun. Even the birds are quieter. Their calls, once scattered through the early hours, have become rare. Occasionally, a single sound crosses the air, then fades again. The temple breathes more slowly now. Not because it is tired, but because this is its rhythm. Morning brings gentle movement. Midday brings quiet holding. Each part of the day has its place. And nothing resists it. Near the outer wall, a small group of workers share a simple meal. They sit close to the ground. The food is plain. Small portions of bread. A few pieces of fruit. Water passed from one to another in a single container. They eat slowly. Without hurry. Each bite is small. Each movement quiet. There is no conversation. Only the soft sounds of hands, of breath, of the faint movement of cloth. When they finish, they do not rise immediately. They remain seated. Allowing the moment to settle. Allowing the stillness to return. In another part of the temple, a priest lies briefly on a woven mat. Not in deep sleep, but in rest. His eyes are closed. His breathing slow. The mat beneath him is simple, familiar. The stone nearby holds a steady warmth. This rest is part of the day. Not separate from it. It does not interrupt the rhythm. It continues it. After a time, he opens his eyes again. He does not move right away. He remains still, returning slowly to wakefulness, just as he did in the early morning. Then, gently, he sits up. The day continues. It has not stopped. It has only softened. And within the temple walls, everything remains as it should be. Calm. Steady. Unbroken. Slowly, almost without notice, the sun begins to shift. It no longer rests directly above. It leans slightly, beginning its gradual descent across the sky. The change is small at first, nearly invisible, but it carries with it a subtle transformation. The light begins to move again. Shadows, once gathered tightly beneath objects, start to stretch outward. At first, they are short and soft. Then, little by little, they lengthen, reaching across the stone floor in thin, quiet lines. The heat begins to ease. Not suddenly. Not in a way that can be felt all at once. But slowly, like a weight being lifted with care. The air becomes lighter. The stillness of midday begins to loosen. Movement returns. Gently. In the courtyard, the workers begin to rise from their resting places. They do not stand quickly. Each movement is gradual, unforced. Hands press lightly against the ground, bodies shift upward, feet find their place again on the warm stone. The tasks resume. Not as they were in the morning, but with a softer pace. Grain is lifted once more. Cloth is unfolded again. Water is carried in steady steps. The sounds return. The quiet rhythm of work. The faint scrape of stone against stone. The soft brushing of reeds across the floor. Each sound is small. None of them break the calm. They only add to it. Near the offering table, a priest returns. The food remains where it was placed earlier. It has not been disturbed. The bread sits in its careful rows. The fruit rests where it was arranged. The water in the bowl is still. He approaches slowly. He does not rush to remove anything. Instead, he stands for a moment, observing. Not examining. Simply noticing. Then, with gentle hands, he begins to gather the items. The bread is lifted one piece at a time. Placed into a basket. The fruit follows. Each piece handled with the same care as before. The bowl of water is lifted last. Its surface shifts slightly as it moves. Then settles again once it is set down elsewhere. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is discarded without purpose. The offerings, once given, now return to the quiet flow of daily life. They will be shared, used, carried beyond this moment. In this way, nothing is separate. Everything continues. Back in the inner sanctuary, the light has shifted slightly. The small beam that enters from above now falls at a different angle, touching a new part of the statue's surface. The change is subtle, but enough to alter the feeling of the space. A priest enters once more. He carries a small container. Inside is fresh oil. The scent is familiar. Warm. Soft. He approaches the statue and pauses. Then, slowly, he begins again. Not repeating the full ritual of the morning, but continuing its care. A small amount of oil is applied. The surface is touched lightly. The cloth is adjusted where needed. Each action is brief, but complete. The god is not awakened again, but attended to. The presence is maintained. The connection is held. Outside, the sky begins to deepen slightly in color. The pale tone of midday shifts toward a softer blue. The brightness remains, but it is no longer still. It moves. It changes. The day is turning. Not ending, but moving forward. And within the temple, every movement follows this quiet transition. No signal is given. No announcement is made. Yet everything adjusts. Naturally. Gently. As it always has. The light begins to soften. It does not fade yet, but it changes in tone, becoming warmer, deeper, more golden as it moves across the temple walls. The sun has lowered enough now that its rays enter the courtyard at an angle, stretching long lines of light and shadow across the stone floor. The columns cast tall, narrow shadows. They reach outward slowly, crossing paths, touching the edges of walls, then extending further as time continues. The carvings along the columns shift in appearance as the light moves across them. Figures that were once evenly lit now hold contrast, one side glowing softly, the other resting in shadow. The temple feels different. Not quieter, but softer. As if the day itself is beginning to relax. The heat continues to ease. The stone, which held the warmth of midday, begins to release it slowly back into the air. The ground beneath bare feet no longer feels warm in the same way. It is neutral now, steady, comfortable. In the courtyard, the workers move with renewed rhythm. Not faster, but more fluid. The slight heaviness of midday has lifted, and their steps carry a quiet ease. Tasks that were paused are now continued with gentle focus. Near the grinding stones, the motion becomes more regular again. Forward. Back. Forward. Back. The sound returns to its earlier steadiness, blending once more into the background of the temple's life. At the washing areas, water is refreshed. New jars are brought in. The basins are emptied and filled again, the surface of the water catching the golden light, reflecting it in soft, shifting patterns. An attendant lifts a cloth, dips it into the basin, and wrings it out slowly. The water falls back in thin streams, barely making a sound. He uses the cloth to wipe the edge of a stone surface, smoothing away any dust that has gathered through the day. Everything is returned to order. Not because it was lost, but because it is always maintained. Near the outer walls, a small group gathers bundles of unused materials. Reeds are tied together. Extra cloth is folded and set aside. Tools are placed in their usual positions. Nothing is left scattered. Nothing is forgotten. The temple closes its open tasks gently, without urgency. In the inner passages, the priests continue their quiet movement. Their paths cross as they pass from one chamber to another, but they do not interrupt one another. Each carries a calm awareness of the other's presence, adjusting without thought, without need for words. One priest pauses near a doorway that leads into a smaller chamber. Inside, the air is cool. Still untouched by the warmer tones of the afternoon. He steps in slowly. The chamber holds a simple arrangement: a small platform, a vessel, a folded cloth. He moves toward the vessel and checks its contents. Water. Clear. Undisturbed. He lifts it slightly, observing the surface. Then places it back exactly where it was. The cloth is adjusted. A small corner, barely out of line, is smoothed gently. These actions are small, almost invisible. But they are not without purpose. They maintain the quiet balance of the space. Back in the inner sanctuary, the light has shifted further. The narrow beam that once touched the statue from above now reaches across its side, creating a soft contrast between light and shadow. The figure remains still, unchanged. Yet the way it is seen continues to evolve with the passing of the day. A senior priest enters once more. His steps are slow, even. He carries a small tray again, though this time it holds fewer items. A small container. A folded piece of cloth. Nothing more. He approaches the statue and pauses. As before. Always before. The moment is allowed to settle. Then he begins. A small adjustment of the cloth that covers the statue. A slight smoothing of its surface. A gentle touch of oil, applied sparingly. Each action is quiet, measured. There is no repetition of the full morning ritual. Only continuation. Only care. The connection remains. Steady. Unbroken. Outside, the sky deepens in color. The pale blue shifts toward a softer, richer tone. The edges of distant clouds begin to catch the golden light, holding it for a little while before it fades. The sounds of the temple continue. Low. Even. Constant. Nothing rises above the rest. Everything exists together. In balance. Near the entrance, a faint breeze begins to move through the open gateway. It carries with it the scent of the river. Cooler. Slightly damp. A contrast to the dry warmth of the stone. The air shifts gently as it passes through the courtyard, touching the surfaces, moving lightly across the skin of those who stand or walk within the space. No one reacts strongly. But the change is felt. Subtle. Welcome. The day is beginning to lean toward its close. Not quickly. Not in any sudden way. But with a steady, quiet movement that cannot be stopped. And within the temple, everything adjusts in harmony with it. As the sun continues its slow descent, the light softens further. The golden tones deepen, spreading across the temple walls and columns. The long shadows stretch even farther now, reaching into corners that remained untouched earlier in the day. The courtyard begins to feel larger, more open. As the light thins, the details of the carvings become gentler, less defined, as if they are slowly returning to rest. The workers begin their final tasks. Not rushed, not hurried, but guided by the natural end of the day. Near the cooking area, the remaining food is gathered. Small portions are placed into simple containers. Some are set aside. Others are prepared to be carried away. The fire is allowed to lower. No new wood is added. The flames soften, then begin to settle into glowing embers. The faint scent of smoke lingers in the air, mixing with the cooler tones of the approaching evening. At the washing areas, the basins are emptied once more. The water, now used, is carried away. Fresh water is not immediately brought to replace it. The need has passed for now. The surfaces are wiped clean. Left smooth. Left ready for the next day. In the outer passages, tools are collected. Each one returned to its place. Not stacked carelessly, but arranged with the same attention given to every action throughout the day. Reeds are leaned against the wall in neat bundles. Cloth is folded into clean layers. Vessels are placed upside down, allowing any remaining moisture to leave them slowly. Nothing is left unfinished. Nothing is left uncertain. The temple does not close abruptly. It settles. Gradually. In the inner areas, the priests begin to gather for the evening ritual. They do not form a tight group. They stand with space between them, allowing the stillness to remain. The air feels cooler now. The warmth of the day has begun to fade, leaving behind a gentle balance between heat and night. The light that enters the inner sanctuary is now very soft. The beam from above has shifted almost entirely away from the statue, leaving it in a calm, even dimness. A priest steps forward. He carries a small container of oil and a piece of cloth. The actions that follow are familiar, repeated from the morning, but quieter, slower, as if the day itself is growing tired. The cloth is adjusted once more. The surface of the statue is touched lightly, not to prepare it for the day, but to prepare it for rest. The care remains the same. The intention remains steady. But the feeling has changed. It is softer now. More inward. The priests remain silent. No sound rises from their gathering. Only the faint movement of cloth. The gentle placement of objects. The quiet presence of breath. Outside, the sky begins to change more noticeably. The blue deepens. The gold shifts toward a softer orange, then a faint red along the horizon. The first signs of evening begin to appear. And within the temple, everything moves gently toward stillness once more. The sun moves lower. It does not fall quickly, but slips downward in a slow, steady motion, as if guided by a quiet rhythm that never changes. The light it casts becomes deeper now, no longer bright and open, but warm and low, stretching across the temple in long, soft lines. The sky shifts in gentle layers. Gold softens into amber. Amber leans into a muted red. And along the far horizon, where the land meets the sky, a thin band of deeper color begins to form, resting quietly above the distant edge of the Nile. Within the temple courtyard, the shadows grow longer still. They reach across the stone floor, touching one another, blending together until the ground becomes a pattern of light and dimness that moves almost without being noticed. The carvings on the walls begin to fade from clear view. Not because they disappear, but because the light no longer rests on them fully. Their lines soften, their edges blur slightly, as if they are slowly returning to silence. The workers have nearly completed their tasks. Only a few remain in motion. One attendant lifts the last of the vessels and carries them toward a storage room. His steps are steady, careful, his hands holding the objects close to his body to keep them from shifting. Another folds the final piece of cloth on a low table. He smooths it once. Then again. Making sure it rests flat, without crease or uneven edge. When he is finished, he places it gently on top of a small stack, aligning it with the others. Nothing remains undone. Near the outer gate, the air begins to cool more noticeably. A soft breeze passes through, carrying the faint scent of the river once more. It moves lightly across the courtyard, brushing against the surfaces, shifting the warmth of the day into something softer. The temple does not resist the change. It accepts it, as it always has. In the inner sanctuary, the evening ritual continues. The priests stand in quiet formation, their presence steady, their movements slow and deliberate. The small container of oil is passed carefully from one to another, though no words guide the motion. Each priest knows when to move, when to wait, when to remain still. The statue stands in dim, even light. No longer touched by the sun. Its surface holds the care of the day, the oil, the cloth, the gentle attention that has been given again and again. A priest steps forward. He holds a small flame. It is contained within a simple lamp, its light steady and calm. The flame does not flicker wildly. It burns in a quiet, controlled way, casting a soft glow that reaches only a short distance into the surrounding darkness. He places the lamp near the base of the statue. The light settles there. It does not replace the sun. It does not fill the room. It simply exists. A small point of warmth within the growing dimness. The priests remain for a time. Standing. Breathing. Present. Then, slowly, they begin to step back. Not all at once. One by one. Each movement gentle. Each step measured. The ritual does not end sharply. It fades. Like the light outside. Like the warmth in the stone. Outside, the sky continues to darken. The deep red at the horizon softens into a muted purple. The blue above deepens further, becoming richer, heavier, yet still calm. The first faint star appears. Barely visible at first. Then another. And another. They do not rush into the sky. They arrive quietly. One by one. The courtyard is now mostly in shadow. Only the highest edges of the walls still catch the last light of the sun. These small areas glow briefly, then begin to dim as the sun slips fully below the horizon. The day has ended. Not suddenly, but completely. And the temple, once again, enters its night. The light is gone. Not entirely, but enough that the temple is no longer shaped by it. Instead, the space is defined by shadow, by soft outlines, by the faint glow of a few small lamps placed carefully in certain areas. The courtyard rests in quiet darkness. The details of the carvings are no longer visible in the same way. They exist, but only as shapes, as suggestions, as memories held within the stone. The air has cooled. The warmth of the day has faded, leaving behind a gentle, even temperature that settles over everything. The breeze from the river continues, though softer now. It moves through the open gateway, across the courtyard, into the inner passages, touching each space without disturbing it. The workers have left. Not in a sudden departure, but gradually, over the last part of the day. Their presence fades from the temple, leaving behind only the priests who remain for the night. Even their movement becomes less frequent, more contained. Near the entrance, a single figure pauses. He looks outward briefly, toward the darkening land beyond the temple walls. The Nile is no longer visible in detail, but its presence can still be felt, a quiet, steady existence just beyond sight. He turns back, steps inside, and continues his path without sound. In the inner chambers, the lamps burn softly. Their light is limited, reaching only the nearest surfaces. The walls hold faint patterns where the carvings catch the glow, but most of the detail remains hidden. The shadows here are not empty. They feel full. Not with movement, but with presence. In the inner sanctuary, the statue remains as it was left. Dressed. Cared for. Now resting in the dim light of the small lamp placed at its base. The flame is steady. It does not flicker strongly. It moves gently, almost as if breathing. A priest enters once more. His steps are slower than before. Quieter. He approaches the statue and pauses, as he has done many times throughout the day. But now, the feeling is different. This is not the beginning of something, nor the continuation. It is the closing. He adjusts the cloth slightly. Just enough. He checks the position of the lamp, ensures it rests safely. Then he steps back. He lowers his head. Not deeply. Just enough to mark the moment. Then he turns and leaves the chamber. The statue remains alone. The lamp continues to burn. Outside, the stars have become clearer. The sky is deep now. Wide. Silent. The temple rests within it. Still. Unmoving. Time continues. But it is no longer measured in tasks. Or in light. It is measured in quiet. In breath. In the slow passage of night. Within a small chamber, a priest prepares to rest. He unrolls his mat once more. The same mat from the night before. He places it carefully on the stone floor. Smooths its surface. Then sits. For a moment, he remains upright. Eyes lowered. Breathing slow. The day has passed. But it has not ended in a single moment. It has faded. Just as it began. He lies down slowly. The stone beneath the mat is cool again. The air is still. The temple is quiet. Not empty. But complete. And as the night deepens, everything settles into its place once more. Unchanged. Unbroken. At rest. The night settles fully over the temple. There is no remaining trace of the sun now. The last warmth has faded from the stone, leaving behind a cool, steady stillness that rests across every surface. The air feels lighter, easier, carrying the softness that only comes when the day has completely passed. Above, the sky stretches wide and dark. The stars are clear. They do not flicker sharply, but glow with a steady, distant light, scattered across the vast openness. Their presence is quiet, yet constant, as if they have always been there, watching without movement. The temple rests beneath them. Unmoving. Calm. The courtyard lies in shadow. The shapes of the columns are still visible, rising into the darkness like silent forms that do not need light to exist. The carvings on their surfaces are hidden now, but they remain, held within the stone as they always are. A faint breeze moves through the open gateway. It is softer than before. Cooler. It carries with it the distant scent of the Nile water, earth, something faintly green and alive. The breeze does not disturb anything. It passes gently, touching the stone, moving across the floor, then continuing on. In the deeper parts of the temple, the lamps burn quietly. Their light is small, contained. They do not attempt to fill the space. Instead, they create small islands of warmth within the darkness, where the nearest surfaces are revealed just enough to be seen. Beyond their reach, everything fades into shadow. In one of the inner chambers, a priest remains awake. He does not move much. He sits near a wall, his back straight, his hands resting loosely in his lap. The light from a nearby lamp touches one side of his face, leaving the other in shadow. His eyes are open. But they do not focus on any one thing. He is simply present. The silence around him is deep. It is not empty. It is full in a quiet way, holding the weight of the day that has passed and the stillness of the hours that remain. Occasionally, a faint sound drifts in from outside the temple walls. The distant call of a night bird. The soft movement of water against the edge of the river. These sounds do not break the silence. They become part of it. Elsewhere, other priests rest. In small chambers, on simple mats, their bodies still, their breathing slow and even. The rhythm of their breath blends with the quiet of the temple, becoming another layer within the calm. Nothing is hurried. Nothing is expected. The night does not ask for action. It allows rest. In the inner sanctuary, the statue stands as it was left. The cloth remains in place. The oil still holds a faint sheen on the surface. The small lamp at its base continues to burn, its flame steady and low. The light touches the lower part of the statue, leaving the upper form in gentle shadow. The presence remains unchanged. The chamber is still. No footsteps enter. No hands adjust the cloth. No new offerings are made. Everything that needed to be done has been done. Now, there is only quiet. The temple does not sleep in the way people do. It does not lose awareness. It simply rests. Holding its form. Holding its purpose. Holding its place within the night. Time moves slowly. Almost without notice. There are no clear markers of its passing. No shifting shadows. No changing light. Only the steady continuation of stillness. And within that stillness, everything remains as it should be. At some point, though it is difficult to say exactly when, the night begins to change. Not in a visible way at first. There is no sudden light. No clear signal. But something shifts. The air feels slightly different. Still cool, but carrying a faint hint of something new. The breeze that moves through the temple changes direction, just slightly, as if responding to something far beyond the walls. In the sky, the stars remain. But their presence softens. Not fading yet. Only becoming less sharp, less defined. The temple holds its quiet. The courtyard remains in shadow. The lamps still burn in the inner chambers, though their flames are smaller now, their oil slowly being used. In one chamber, the priest who remained awake lowers his head slightly. Not in sleep, but in a moment of deeper stillness. His breathing remains even. His posture unchanged. Elsewhere, a resting priest begins to stir. The movement is small. A shift of the hand. A slight change in breath. The body begins to move out of rest, though not fully awake yet. This is the beginning. Not of the day, but of the return. The cycle prepares to continue. In the inner sanctuary, the lamp near the statue burns lower. The flame is smaller now, but still steady. The chamber remains calm. The statue stands as it always has. Waiting. Not actively, but in a quiet, constant way. Outside, the sky begins to lighten. Just slightly. So faint that it is almost impossible to see. A soft change in the darkness, as if a thin layer has been lifted from the horizon. The stars nearest that edge begin to fade. One by one. Slowly. The breeze carries a slightly cooler tone now, touched by the coming morning. The temple remains still. But the stillness is no longer complete. It is changing. Gently. Gradually. Without interruption. A priest opens his eyes. He does not rise immediately. He remains lying on his mat, aware of the subtle shift in the air, the faint difference in the darkness. This is how the day begins. Not with sound. Not with light. But with a quiet awareness. He sits up slowly. The movement is familiar. Repeated many times before. The mat beneath him shifts slightly, then settles again. He folds it. Carefully. As it was folded the night before. As it will be folded again. He stands. The stone beneath his feet is cool once more. The same as it was at the beginning of the last day. The same as it will be again. He steps into the corridor. The darkness is still present. But softer now. Less complete. Other figures begin to move as well. Not all at once. Not in a single place. But gradually, from different corners, from different chambers. The temple begins to wake. Not suddenly. But in the same quiet, steady way it always has. The cycle returns. Unbroken. Unchanged. The beginning is the same as the ending. The ending is the same as the beginning. And within this quiet rhythm, the temple continues. Day after day. Night after night. Without interruption. Without haste. Only steady time. Flowing. Endless. The faint light at the horizon grows. It does not arrive quickly, and it does not disturb the quiet that still rests over the temple. Instead, it spreads slowly, like a thin layer of pale gold laid gently across the edge of the world. The stars begin to fade. Not all at once, and not completely. Some remain a little longer, holding their place in the sky as if reluctant to leave. But one by one, they soften, becoming less visible, until only a few faint points remain. The air is cool. Fresh. It carries a calm clarity that was not present in the deeper night. The breeze from the Nile feels slightly stronger now, though still gentle, moving through the open gateway and across the courtyard with quiet ease. The temple begins its return. Not as something new, but as something that has always been continuing. Within the inner chambers, the priests begin to rise. The movements are familiar. Unhurried. Each one wakes in the same way as before, eyes opening slowly, bodies remaining still for a moment, listening to the quiet that is no longer complete, but not yet broken. A priest sits up on his woven mat. His hands rest briefly on the surface before him, feeling the texture, grounding himself in the moment. Then he begins to fold it, just as he did the morning before. Each motion is careful. Repetition does not make it faster. It makes it steady. The mat is placed aside. The chamber remains simple, unchanged. He stands and steps into the corridor. The walls around him are still dim, but no longer fully dark. The carvings are beginning to appear again, their outlines slowly returning as the light grows. Another priest emerges from a nearby passage. They pass each other without speaking. A slight lowering of the head. A shared understanding. Nothing more is needed. The courtyard slowly becomes visible. At first, only its shape. Then its details. The outlines of the columns. The edges of the stone floor. The low tables where offerings will soon be placed again. Everything returns in stages. The light does not reveal all at once. It unfolds. Near the washing basin, a young attendant arrives. He carries a jar of water. The surface of the jar is cool, slightly damp from the early air. He places it beside the basin and begins to pour. The water flows in a smooth, quiet stream. It gathers in the stone basin, forming a still surface that reflects the growing light above. Another attendant follows, carrying a second jar. Then another. They work together without speaking, filling the basin slowly until it is ready. The first priest approaches. He bends slightly, placing his hands into the water. The coolness returns. The same sensation as the morning before. And the morning before that. He washes carefully. Hands. Arms. Face. Each movement steady, repeated with quiet intention. Purification begins again. Not as something separate from yesterday, but as its continuation. The temple is not beginning a new story. It is continuing the same one. In the inner sanctuary, the lamp still burns. Its flame is small now, nearing the end of its oil. The light it gives is faint, barely reaching beyond the base of the statue. A senior priest enters. He pauses at the doorway, as always. The moment is held. Then he steps inside. He approaches the lamp first. With careful hands, he adjusts it, adding a small amount of oil. The flame grows slightly stronger, steady once more. Then his attention turns to the statue. The cloth remains in place. The surface still holds the care from the day before. But the ritual must begin again. Not because it was undone, but because it is always renewed. He places a small tray nearby. On it are the same simple items. Cloth. Water. Oil. Nothing has changed. And yet, everything is ready again. Outside, the sky brightens. The pale gold becomes clearer. The first true light of the sun approaches, still hidden below the horizon but close enough now to be felt. The courtyard begins to glow softly. The tops of the columns catch the earliest light. A faint warmth returns to the stone. The temple is waking. But not in a sudden way. It rises slowly, as it always does. With patience. With stillness. With quiet continuity. The first direct light of the sun reaches the temple. It touches the highest points first, the tops of the walls, the edges of the columns, the surfaces that face the east. The light is soft at this hour, not strong, not overwhelming, but gentle and clear. It begins its slow descent. Moving downward, revealing detail after detail. The carvings return. The lines sharpen. The figures that were hidden in shadow become visible once more. Nothing has changed in them. But their presence feels renewed. In the courtyard, the morning tasks begin again. The rhythm is familiar. Comforting in its sameness. An attendant brings fresh bread. Still warm. The scent spreads quietly through the air. He places it on the same low table as before, arranging each piece with care. Another brings fruit, figs, dates, placed in the same gentle patterns. Nothing is rushed. Nothing is altered. The same actions. The same order. Again and again. And in this repetition, there is a kind of calm that does not fade. The priests move through their paths. One toward the basin. Another toward the inner chambers. A third toward the courtyard tables. Their movements do not need to be planned. They are known. Carried within them through many days. In the inner sanctuary, the morning ritual begins once more. The cloth is lifted. The statue is revealed. The water is poured. The oil is applied. Each action is the same as it was before. Not copied, but continued. The priest's hands move with quiet precision. No movement is wasted. No motion is hurried. Everything unfolds at the same steady pace. The chamber holds the same stillness. The same calm presence. The same quiet weight of time. Outside, the light grows stronger. The sky shifts from pale gold to soft blue. The day begins again in full. But there is no sense of beginning. Only continuation. The temple does not mark time in the way others might. It does not separate yesterday from today. Or today from tomorrow. It exists within a flow that does not break. A cycle that repeats without losing its meaning. The bread will be placed. The offerings will be made. The work will be done. The sun will rise and fall. And the temple will remain. Steady. Calm. Unchanging in its rhythm. As the morning deepens, the sounds return. The soft grinding of grain. The quiet movement of water. The faint tone of a distant instrument. Each one blending into the whole. Nothing stands apart. Everything belongs. And the listener, resting quietly within this story, can feel the steady flow of time continue. Slow. Gentle. Endless. The morning grows wider. The light that first touched only the highest edges now settles fully into the courtyard, filling the open space with a soft, even brightness. The stone reflects it gently, not sharply, allowing the air to remain calm and easy. The temple continues its quiet rhythm. Each movement follows another, not in strict order, but in a natural flow that feels unbroken. Near the tables, the offerings are arranged once more. The bread rests in small rows. The fruit is placed beside it. The bowl of water reflects the sky, now a clearer blue. A priest approaches. He pauses, as always. The moment holds. Then the first offering begins again. The same gentle motions. The same steady presence. Nothing changes. And yet, nothing feels repeated in a dull way. Each action carries the quiet weight of attention. Each moment stands on its own, even as it connects to all the others. In the outer areas, the workers resume their tasks. The grinding stones move again. Forward. Back. Forward. Back. The sound returns, steady and soft, blending into the morning air. Cloth is unfolded. Water is carried. Surfaces are cleaned. Everything is maintained. Not because it has become unclean, but because care is continuous. A young attendant pauses near the courtyard wall. He looks outward, toward the direction of the Nile. The river is not fully visible from where he stands, but its presence is always felt. A faint shimmer of light. A quiet sense of movement. He does not linger long. He turns and continues his task. In the inner chambers, the air remains cooler. The light enters slowly, reaching only certain parts of the walls. The carvings there appear softer, less defined, but still present. A priest walks through one of these passages. His steps are quiet. He does not look directly at the carvings, but his hand brushes lightly against the wall as he passes. A brief contact. Then gone. The temple holds these small gestures. They are not recorded, not spoken, but they are part of the day. In the inner sanctuary, the ritual continues. The statue has been prepared once more. The cloth has been set. The oil has been applied. The moment settles. A small offering is placed near the base. Simple. Unadorned. Complete. The priest steps back. The chamber returns to stillness. Outside, the sky brightens further. The warmth begins to return to the stone. Not strong yet, but noticeable. The air shifts slightly, carrying the first hint of the day's heat. The temple breathes. Slow. Even. Steady. Nothing rises above the rest. Everything remains balanced. The sun continues its steady climb. Higher now. The light becomes more direct, more present across the courtyard. The shadows begin to shorten again, drawing closer to the bases of the columns. The transition is gradual. Almost unnoticed unless one watches carefully. The temple adjusts without effort. The workers move with the same calm rhythm, though their steps become slightly more measured as the warmth increases. Near the grinding stones, the motion continues. Forward. Back. The sound remains steady. A constant presence. Nearby, water is poured into basins again. The surface ripples briefly, then settles. Hands are washed. Cloth is rinsed. The coolness offers a quiet contrast to the growing warmth of the day. At the cooking area, a small fire is lit once more. The flames rise gently, contained and steady. A pot is placed above it. Simple food begins to warm. The scent spreads slowly, soft and familiar. Nothing sharp. Nothing strong. Just a quiet presence in the air. In the courtyard, the offerings are completed. The priests step back. The food remains for a time, untouched. Then, slowly, it is gathered again. Each item lifted with care. Nothing wasted. Nothing forgotten. Everything continues its path. In the inner sanctuary, the light shifts slightly. The beam from above moves across the statue once more, touching a different part of its surface. The priest returns. He does not begin the full ritual again. Only a small continuation. A slight adjustment. A gentle touch. The presence is maintained. Outside, the sky deepens into a clearer blue. The air grows warmer. The temple begins its slow movement toward midday once again. Not as a new phase, but as a return. The same pattern. The same rhythm. The same quiet unfolding. And within it, everything remains calm. Unbroken. Steady. Part 20, the endless rhythm of the temple. Time passes. Not in marked moments. Not in counted hours. But in a continuous flow that does not divide itself. Morning becomes midday. Midday becomes afternoon. Afternoon becomes evening. And then night. Only to return again. The temple does not resist this cycle. It does not attempt to change it. It moves within it. Calmly. Fully. Without interruption. The priests continue their paths. The workers continue their tasks. The offerings are made. The surfaces are cleaned. The lamps are lit. The lamps are dimmed. Everything repeats. And yet, it never feels empty. Because each action is done with the same quiet care. The same steady attention. The same presence. The stone walls hold these moments. Not as memories, but as a continuous state of being. The carvings do not change, but the light that touches them does. The air does not hold sound, but it receives it, gently, and lets it fade. The temple exists in this balance. Between movement and stillness. Between light and shadow. Between beginning and ending. And for the one who rests within this story, listening quietly, the rhythm becomes something else. Something steady. Something calming. Something that does not ask for thought. Only for presence. The day continues. As it always has. As it always will. Slow. Gentle. Endless. There are times in the year when the rhythm of the temple remains the same, yet the world beyond its walls begins to change. Far out along the Nile, the waters begin to rise. It happens slowly. So slowly that no single moment can be pointed to as the beginning. The river swells with distant rains that fall far to the south, beyond the sight of those who live beside its banks. Day by day, the water grows deeper, wider, spreading gently across the lowland. Within the temple, this change is known. Not through sudden signs, but through quiet awareness. The air carries a slightly different scent. The breeze from the river feels fuller, touched with moisture that was not there before. A priest standing near the outer wall pauses for a moment. He does not look directly at the river, yet he senses it. The subtle shift. The slow transformation. He remains still for a brief time. Then continues. The temple does not alter its rhythm. The morning rituals unfold as they always do. The washing. The offerings. The quiet movements between chambers. Everything continues. And yet, beyond the walls, the land is becoming softer. Fields near the river begin to hold water. The ground darkens. The edges of paths blur slightly as the earth absorbs what the river gives. Workers who come and go from the temple carry this change with them. Not in words, but in the small traces that follow. A slight dampness on the edge of a garment. A faint scent of wet soil. These details enter the temple quietly, blending into its atmosphere without disturbance. In the courtyard, the light remains the same. The sun rises. The shadows move. The day unfolds. But the air feels a little heavier. Not unpleasant. Just full. As if holding more than before. Near the washing basin, the water reflects the sky. But now, there is a deeper tone in its surface. A richer stillness. As though the presence of the river beyond has drawn closer, even without being seen. The priests continue their rituals. The statue in the inner sanctuary is cared for as always. Cloth is placed. Oil is applied. Offerings are made. Nothing is added. Nothing is removed. The temple remains steady. Even as the world shifts. This is its nature. To hold its form. To continue its rhythm. No matter the changes that come and go beyond its walls. On certain days, the rhythm of the temple expands. Not in a loud or sudden way. But in a gentle extension. A quiet procession begins to form. It does not start with a call. Or a signal. It begins with preparation. In a shaded area of the temple, Several priests gather near a carefully prepared platform. Upon it rests a small, covered structure. Simple in shape, but treated with great care. The cloth that covers it is smooth, clean, arranged with precision. An attendant approaches with fresh fabric. He adjusts the covering slightly, ensuring it rests evenly, without crease, without imbalance. Nearby, another prepares a small set of objects. A container of oil, a small dish, a folded cloth, each placed in its proper position. Nothing is rushed. Everything is deliberate. In the courtyard, the movement changes slightly. The usual tasks continue, but there is an added awareness. A quiet anticipation. Not excitement, but readiness. The priests who will take part in the procession begin to move toward the platform. They do not gather tightly. They take their places slowly, each one standing in a position that has been known before. Repeated across many days like this. A faint sound begins. Soft. Low. Drawn out. It does not rise sharply. It remains steady, like a line stretched through the air. The covered structure is lifted. Carefully. By steady hands. The movement is slow. Balanced. Nothing shifts. Nothing disturbs its placement. The procession begins. It moves through the courtyard. Not quickly. Each step measured. Even. The path is clear. The stone beneath their feet holds the sound of movement, but only faintly. The procession does not seek attention. It exists quietly. Within the temple. Moving through spaces that are already known. The other workers pause slightly as it passes. Not stopping completely, but allowing space. Allowing the moment to move through. The air feels different. Not heavier, but more focused. As if the entire space has narrowed its attention to this single, steady movement. The procession continues into a shaded passage. Then beyond. Disappearing gradually from view. The sound fades. The movement softens. And the temple returns to its steady rhythm once more. Nothing is left behind. No trace of interruption. Only the quiet continuation of the day. There are moments in the day when nothing seems to happen. No visible action. No movement that stands out. Only stillness. And yet, these moments are not empty. They are the foundation of everything that takes place. In the inner chambers, the air remains cool. The walls hold their silence. A priest stands alone in a narrow passage. He is not performing a task. Not carrying anything. He simply stands. His presence is quiet. Steady. The light around him is soft, barely reaching the floor. Time passes. But it does not feel like passing. It feels like resting. In the courtyard, a similar stillness appears. The workers have paused between tasks. The tools are set aside. The grinding stones are still. The basins hold water without movement. The temple breathes. Slowly. Evenly. These pauses are part of the rhythm. They are not interruptions. They are essential. Without them, the movement would feel different. Less grounded. Less complete. In the inner sanctuary, the statue remains. Unchanged. The cloth rests in quiet lines. The surface holds the care of the day. The lamp, if present, burns softly. Or has already dimmed. The space does not require action at every moment. It holds its meaning in stillness. The priests understand this. They do not fill every space with movement. They allow the quiet to exist. Fully. Completely. Outside, the sky continues its slow movement. The sun rises. The sun lowers. The light shifts. But inside the temple, the deeper rhythm remains untouched. It is not tied to a single hour. Or a single task. It exists beneath all of it. Steady. Unbroken. And for the one who listens, resting gently within this unfolding story, this stillness becomes something familiar. Something calming. A place where nothing is required. Nothing is rushed. Only quiet presence. Only gentle time. Flowing. Endless. There are certain days when more people come near the temple. From the paths that lead along the Nile, and from the quiet settlements beyond the fields, figures begin to appear earlier than usual. They walk slowly, not in a crowd, but in a gentle, steady flow. Their presence does not disturb the temple. It blends into it. The outer areas hold a slightly different feeling on these days. Not louder, but fuller. The air carries more breath, more movement, though everything remains calm. At the entrance, attendants stand quietly. They do not stop those who arrive. They simply guide. A small gesture of the hand. A slight turn of the body. Showing where to walk. Where to pause. Where to remain still. Those who enter move carefully. Their steps are softer than usual, as if they are aware of the weight of the space. Some carry small offerings, simple items, wrapped in cloth or held in open hands. They do not speak much. If they do, their voices remain low, almost blending into the air. In the courtyard, the usual preparations continue. Bread is placed. Fruit is arranged. Water is poured. Nothing is changed in the order. Nothing is altered in the rhythm. The priests move as they always do. Their focus remains inward. Their actions steady. The presence of others does not shift their pace. A quiet procession forms again. Larger this time. More figures moving together. Yet still slow. Still measured. The covered structure is carried through the courtyard. Those who have come to observe step slightly aside, creating space without being asked. Some lower their heads. Some simply stand still. Watching. The procession passes. The sound remains low. The same steady tone. Unbroken. It does not rise to meet the number of people. It remains as it always is. The movement continues through the temple. Then gradually fades. As before. When it is gone, the courtyard returns to its usual balance. The visitors remain for a time. Standing. Sitting along the edges. Observing the quiet work. Then, slowly, they begin to leave. Not all at once. One by one. Or in small groups. Their steps carry them back toward the paths, toward the river, toward the places they came from. Nothing is announced. Nothing is concluded. The temple remains unchanged. The day continues. Beyond the temple walls, the Nile continues its steady flow. Its movement is constant. Never still. Yet never rushed. The water carries with it the passing of time in a way that cannot be seen directly, only felt. Within the temple, this presence is always there. Even when the river is not visible. Its sound reaches the quieter corners. A soft, distant rhythm. Almost like breath. Near one of the outer passages, A narrow opening allows a clearer sense of the river's presence. An attendant pauses there briefly. He does not step outside. He remains within the shade. But the air that moves through the opening carries the scent of water more clearly. Cool. Slightly damp. Grounded. He stands for a moment. Listening. Not actively. But receiving. Then he turns and continues. Inside, water is used carefully. Poured. Held. Carried. Each drop has purpose. Nothing is wasted. The basins reflect the sky during the day. The lamps at night. Always still. Always contained. The priests use water in their rituals with steady hands. Washing. Pouring. Touching. The movements are slow. Consistent. The same patterns repeated again and again. In this way, the water of the temple and the water of the river remain connected. Not physically, but in rhythm, in presence, in continuity. The day moves forward. The light changes. The shadows shift. But the sound of the river remains. A quiet reminder of time passing, of cycles continuing, of something larger than the temple, yet always beside it. Among the many who move through the temple, each follows the same shared rhythm. And yet, within that rhythm, there are small personal patterns. Subtle differences. A priest walks through a familiar passage. His steps are steady. Measured. He has walked this path many times. So many that he no longer needs to look down. His feet know the stone. The slight variations in the floor. The places where the surface dips or rises just enough to be felt. He pauses at a certain point. Not because he must. But because he always has. It is a small space along the wall. A carving rests there. Partially worn. The details softened by time. He does not study it closely. He simply allows his hand to rest against it for a brief moment. Then he continues. In the courtyard, he moves toward the basin. Washes his hands. As always. But the motion carries a quiet familiarity that is entirely his own. The way he lifts the water. The slight pause before letting it fall. These are not taught. They have developed slowly. Over many days. He moves to assist with the offerings. Arranging bread. Adjusting fruit. Each action the same as the others. And yet, held in his own way. The temple allows for this. Within its steady rhythm, there is space for these small, quiet differences. They do not change the whole. They do not stand out. But they exist. Softly. Gently. In the inner sanctuary, he enters after another priest has completed a ritual. He does not begin a new one. He only stands. For a moment. In the presence of the statue. The chamber is still. The air cool. He remains. Not thinking. Not acting. Then he leaves. The moment passes. Unmarked. Unrecorded. Yet part of the day. As the light begins to shift again toward afternoon, he continues his path. From one space to another. From one small task to the next. Nothing extraordinary. Nothing different. Only the steady unfolding of a life within the temple. Quiet. Consistent. At ease within the rhythm that never breaks. The sun begins its slow descent again. The cycle repeats. The light warms. The shadows lengthen. The air cools. The workers slow their movements. The priests adjust their pace. The offerings are gathered. The surfaces are cleaned. The lamps are prepared. Everything returns to the same gentle closing. Nothing is rushed. Nothing is delayed. The temple does not measure the day as something to complete. It allows it to settle. As the sky deepens in color, the courtyard grows quieter. The sounds fade. One by one. The grinding stops. The water rests. The footsteps become fewer. The temple moves toward stillness again. As it always does. As it always will. And within this endless rhythm, the story continues. Softly. Slowly. Without beginning. Without end. There is a moment, late in the day, when the temple seems to rest between two breaths. The sun has not fully set. The night has not fully arrived. The light is soft, balanced, neither bright nor dim, resting gently on the surfaces of stone as if it does not wish to move too quickly. This moment does not last long. And yet, it feels extended. Stretched in a way that is difficult to measure. In the courtyard, the final tasks are nearly complete. A worker gathers the last small tools from the ground. He lifts them one by one, brushing away fine dust with the edge of his hand before placing them into a woven basket. Each tool fits into its place, not by force, but by familiarity. Nearby, another folds a length of cloth. The motion is slow. Precise. The fabric moves easily through his hands, its surface catching the last of the fading light. Once folded, it is placed on a low stone surface, aligned carefully with others that have already been set aside. Nothing is left loose. Nothing is left unfinished. The temple prepares itself for night in the same quiet way it prepares itself for morning. In the inner passages, the air begins to cool more noticeably. The warmth of the day slips away, not suddenly, but steadily, leaving behind a calm, even stillness. A priest walks through one of these corridors. His steps are soft. Measured. He passes a narrow opening in the wall, where a small line of fading light stretches across the floor. For a brief moment, he steps through it. The light touches his feet. Then he moves beyond it, and it remains where it is, slowly dimming as the sun continues its descent. In the inner sanctuary, the final adjustments are made. The cloth on the statue is smoothed once more. The surface is checked, not because anything has changed, but because the care is continuous. A small lamp is prepared. Its oil is fresh. Its wick set carefully. When it is lit, the flame rises slowly, steady and controlled, casting a soft glow that gently replaces the fading daylight. The priest steps back. The chamber settles. The light of the sun withdraws completely. And the lamp remains. A quiet presence in the growing darkness. Outside, the sky deepens. The soft gold shifts into a muted orange. Then into a gentle purple. The horizon holds a thin line of color for a moment longer, then releases it. The night begins again. The first stars appear as they always do. Quietly. Without drawing attention. A single point of light, faint at first, then clearer as the sky darkens. Then another. And another. They do not fill the sky all at once. They arrive gradually, spacing themselves across the darkness in a calm, unhurried way. The temple rests beneath them. The courtyard is now fully in shadow. The shapes of the columns remain, rising into the night as steady forms, unchanged by the absence of light. The carvings are no longer visible in detail. But they remain present. Held within the stone. In the inner areas, the lamps burn softly. Their light is contained. Gentle. It does not reach far, but it is enough. Enough to define the space. Enough to hold the quiet. A priest walks slowly through the courtyard. His path is known to him. He does not need light to guide him. His steps fall where they always have. The stone beneath his feet is familiar. Each slight variation, each subtle change in surface, is known through repetition. He pauses briefly near the center. Not for any task. Not for any visible reason. Simply to be still. The air is cool. The breeze from the Nile carries a steady softness. The scent of water is more noticeable now, mixing with the faint traces of oil and stone that remain from the day. After a moment, he continues. His form moves through the darkness, then disappears into one of the inner passages. The temple does not sleep as a single thing. It rests in many small ways. Each chamber holds its own quiet. Each space its own stillness. And together, they form a calm that is complete. Though the day has ended, its presence does not disappear. It remains. Not as sound. Not as movement. But as something softer. A memory held within the space. The warmth that once filled the stone has faded, but a trace of it lingers deep within the walls. The scent of bread, of fruit, of oil, of smoke from the small fires all remain, faintly, layered into the air. These are not strong. They do not stand out. They blend, becoming part of the temple itself. In one chamber, a priest rests on his mat. His breathing is slow. Even. The rhythm of his breath echoes the rhythm of the day that has passed. Steady. Unbroken. In another chamber, a lamp burns lower. Its flame is smaller now, but still steady. The light it gives is soft, barely reaching the edges of the room. Yet it is enough. The statue in the inner sanctuary stands in this quiet light. Unmoving. Present. The cloth remains in place. The surface holds the care of many repeated actions. Nothing more is needed. The temple does not ask for more. It holds what it has. Completely. Outside, the river continues its slow movement. The sound is distant. Soft. Almost like a whisper that never fully fades. The stars remain. Clear. Steady. The night deepens. But not in a way that feels heavy. Only in a way that feels complete. Time passes without being counted. The night holds its stillness. Then, slowly, almost without notice, it begins to change. The air shifts. Just slightly. The breeze carries a different tone. Cooler. Fresher. The stars begin to soften again. Not disappearing. Only becoming less sharp. The horizon, still dark, begins to hold the faintest trace of light. So faint that it is almost imagined. But it grows. Slowly. The temple remains still. But the stillness is changing. The priests begin to stir. Small movements. A shift of the hand. A quiet breath drawn more deeply. The body preparing to rise. In one chamber, a priest opens his eyes. He does not move at once. He listens. To the quiet. To the subtle change in the air. Then, slowly, he sits up. The mat beneath him shifts slightly. He folds it. As always. The same careful motions. The same steady attention. He stands. Steps into the corridor. The darkness is softer now. Less complete. The outlines of the walls begin to return. The temple begins to wake again. Not as something new, but as something that has never stopped. The cycle continues, as it always has. Morning approaches. The rituals will begin again. The offerings will be placed. The water will be poured. The light will return. And the temple will remain steady, calm, unbroken, endless. As the cycle continues, there are always those who are newer to the temple. They move within the same rhythm, but their awareness is still growing, still settling into the steady patterns that never rush and never pause. A young attendant wakes before the first light has fully returned. His mat is simple, like the others. He lies still for a moment after opening his eyes, listening to the soft quiet around him. The night has not fully gone, but it has softened. He feels the change, even if he cannot describe it. Slowly, he sits up. His movements are careful, slightly more deliberate than those of the older priests. Not uncertain, but attentive, as if each motion is being noticed from within. He folds his mat. He has done this many times, but he still checks the edges, making sure they align. His hands smooth the surface once, then again, until it feels complete. He stands. Steps into the corridor. The walls are dim, but visible enough to guide him. The carvings seem to watch quietly, as they always do, unchanged, steady. He moves toward the courtyard. There, the first faint light begins to touch the highest stone. He pauses. Just for a moment. Not because he is told to, but because something in the stillness holds him. Then he continues. His first task is simple. He carries water. The jar is not heavy, but he holds it with care, both hands steady, his steps measured so that the surface inside does not shift too quickly. He reaches the basin. Pours the water slowly. The sound is soft. He watches the surface settle. This is part of learning. Not just the task, but the way it is done. The pace. The attention. Nearby, an older priest moves with ease. His actions are quiet, fluid, almost without effort. The young attendant notices this. Not directly, but through the feeling of it. He continues his work. Filling. Placing. Adjusting. Nothing is corrected. Nothing is spoken. The learning happens through repetition. Through presence. Through the steady rhythm of the temple itself. As the light grows, he moves to the offering table. He arranges bread. One piece at a time. He adjusts their spacing. Steps back. Looks briefly. Then makes a small correction. A slight turn. A gentle shift. He does not rush. There is no need. The temple does not require speed. Only care. In the inner sanctuary, he does not enter. Not yet. That space is held by those who have walked longer within the rhythm. But he stands near the passage. Feeling the cool air that flows from within. Sensing the quiet depth of the chamber. He does not need to see it. He knows it is there. Over time, his movements will become like the others. Steady. Effortless. But for now, they remain attentive. Careful. And within that care, he becomes part of the temple. The temple itself remains unchanged. Not in its form. Not in its presence. The stone walls stand as they always have. Their surfaces hold the marks of time, not in damage, but in quiet wear. The edges of carvings soften slightly over years. The floors become smoother where many feet have passed. But these changes do not alter the temple. They deepen it. Each day leaves a trace. Not visible. Not recorded. But present. The same light touches the same surfaces again and again. The same shadows move across the same ground. Morning after morning. Evening after evening. And the stone receives it all. In the courtyard, the columns rise without movement. Their shapes are steady. Their carvings constant. They do not respond to the passing of time. They hold it. A priest places his hand briefly against one of the columns as he passes. The stone is cool, solid, unchanging. He does not linger. But the contact is enough. A quiet connection. In the inner chambers, the walls are closer. The air is still. The stone feels different here. Not warmer. Not cooler. Just deeper. As if the space itself holds more quiet. The statue in the sanctuary stands upon its platform. It does not move. It does not change. And yet, it is never the same. Because each day, it is seen again. Touched again. Cared for again. The stone holds all of this. Without effort. Without need. It simply remains. And in that remaining, it becomes something steady enough for everything else to move around it. Some days pass without any change at all. No procession. No gathering. No variation in the rhythm. And yet, these days are not empty. They are complete in their sameness. The morning begins. As it always does. The light rises slowly. The priests wake. The water is poured. The offerings are placed. The same actions. The same order. The same quiet care. Midday arrives. The heat settles. The movement slows. The stillness deepens. Then softens again. Afternoon returns. The shadows lengthen. The tasks resume. Evening follows. The light fades. The lamps are lit. Night comes. The temple rests. Nothing stands out. Nothing changes. And yet, the day is full. Because each moment is held. Each action is complete. Nothing is rushed. Nothing is skipped. The repetition is not empty. It is grounding. It holds the temple in its steady rhythm. It allows each person within it to move without question. Without uncertainty. Everything is known. And in that knowing, there is calm. The cycle continues. Without break. Without beginning. Without end. The temple does not look forward. It does not look back. It exists within the steady flow of now. Each day is the same. And each day is enough. The light returns. The light fades. The water moves. The stone remains. The priests walk. The attendants learn. The offerings are made. The silence holds. And for the one who listens, resting within this quiet unfolding, the rhythm becomes something gentle. Something steady. Something that does not demand attention. Only presence. Only stillness. Only the soft passing of time. The temple continues. As it always has. As it always will. Calm. Slow. Endless. There are days when the air carries a different texture. Not a strong change. Not enough to interrupt the rhythm. But enough to be noticed in quiet ways. A breeze moves through the temple from the open gateway, as it always does. Yet today, it carries something finer within it. A trace of sand. so light that it cannot be seen as it travels. Only felt. A soft dryness against the skin. A faint shift in the scent of the air. Near the courtyard floor, a thin layer settles over the stone. Not thick. Not heavy. Just enough to soften the surface slightly. An attendant notices. He does not react quickly. He brings a bundle of reeds. Begins to sweep. The motion is slow. Gentle. He does not force the sand away. He gathers it. Moves it aside. The sound is soft. Almost like a whisper across the stone. Other attendants follow. Each taking a small section. Working quietly. Without urgency. The temple adjusts. Not through sudden action. But through steady care. In the inner chambers, the air remains still. The sand does not reach as deeply. The walls hold their calm. The statue remains untouched by the outside movement. Only the faintest trace reaches the entrance, then settles. A priest passes through the courtyard. He feels the slight difference beneath his feet. The stone is less firm in its surface. He notices. But does not pause. The temple does not resist the change. It receives it. Then gently restores its balance. The sand is cleared. The surfaces return. The rhythm continues. Unbroken. At times, a sound rises within the temple. Not loud. Not sudden. But present. A low tone. Drawn from a simple instrument. It begins softly. Almost as if it has always been there. Then becomes just noticeable. A single note. Held steady. Not rising. Not falling. It moves through the courtyard. Along the walls. Into the passages. It does not echo sharply. The stone absorbs it. Softens it. Allows it to exist without disturbance. The priests continue their movements. They do not turn toward it. They do not react. The sound is part of the rhythm. Not separate from it. An attendant pauses for a brief moment. Only a moment. Then continues his task. The tone remains. Unbroken. It stretches across time in a way that feels longer than it is. Then, slowly, it fades. Not ending. But dissolving. Becoming less. Until it is no longer heard. The silence returns. But it does not feel empty. It feels complete. As if the sound has settled into it. Becoming part of the stillness. The movement of light across the temple is slow. So slow that it cannot be seen in a single moment. Only understood over time. In the morning, it arrives gently. Touching the highest surfaces. Then moving downward. In the courtyard, a column stands in stillness. Its carvings face the east. At first, they are hidden. Then the light reaches them. A line appears. Soft. Then grows. Revealing shapes. Figures. Hands. Faces. The details emerge slowly. Nothing is sudden. A priest passes by. The light touches his arm. Then moves on. He does not notice. Or perhaps he does, but does not pause. The light continues. Crossing the floor. Touching the opposite wall. Then rising again as the day shifts. By midday, it is everywhere. Even. Open. Then it begins to withdraw. The shadows return. The carvings soften. The shapes blur. The same path. In reverse. This movement happens every day. the same, and yet never felt as repetition. Because it is always present, always unfolding, always part of the calm. Though the temple does not breathe as a living body does, it holds a rhythm that feels like breath. The air moves slowly, inward, outward, through the open gateway, along the corridors, across the courtyard. In the morning, the air feels light, cool, fresh. At midday, it grows still, full, held. In the afternoon, it begins to move again, softly, carrying warmth away. In the evening, it cools, settles, and at night, it becomes quiet, deep, almost unmoving. This pattern repeats, not forced, not controlled. It simply happens. The priests move within it. Their steps align with it. Their actions follow it. Even their stillness reflects it. An attendant pauses near a passage. He feels the air move past him. A gentle shift. He does not think of it. He does not question it. He simply exists within it. The temple holds this rhythm. Invisible, unspoken, yet always present. The cycle continues. Without effort, without interruption. The same morning returns. The same light. The same water. The same quiet actions. The same stillness. The same movement. Nothing needs to change. Because everything is already complete. The temple does not seek something new. It does not move toward an ending. It remains within its calm. Each day flows into the next. Each night settles into the same quiet. Each moment holds the same steady presence. And within this endless rhythm, there is no urgency. No tension. No need to move faster. Everything happens as it should. At its own pace. In its own time. The temple stands. The stone remains. The light moves. The air shifts. The people come and go. And the calm continues. Unbroken. Unfading. Endless. Each day within the temple is held together by small acts that rarely draw attention. They are not grand. They are not marked by ceremony. And yet, without them, the rhythm would slowly lose its shape. In the early part of the morning, after the first rituals have settled, an older attendant moves along the edges of the courtyard. He carries nothing at first. Only his presence. His eyes move gently across the space. Not searching. Simply noticing. A small unevenness in a stack of cloth. A faint line of dust near the base of a column. A vessel placed slightly out of alignment. None of these are urgent. None require immediate action. But each is quietly held in awareness. He returns with a simple cloth. A small tool. Nothing more. He begins to adjust. Not correcting in a sharp way. Only guiding things back into place. The cloth is lifted. Smoothed. Set down again. The vessel is turned slightly. The line of dust is brushed away with a soft motion that barely disturbs the air. These actions are almost invisible. Others pass nearby without stopping. Without noticing. And yet, the space changes. Not in a visible way. But in a feeling. The courtyard settles more deeply into its calm. Balance is restored. Not because it was lost. But because it is always maintained. In the inner chambers, similar movements take place. A priest adjusts a small object on a low platform. Another ensures a passage remains clear. A third pauses near the sanctuary entrance, sensing the quiet within, then continues without entering. Nothing is spoken. Nothing is announced. The temple does not require acknowledgement for these actions. They exist as part of its nature. Steady. Continuous. Unseen. There are times when the sky above the temple changes in a subtle way. Clouds appear. Not heavy. Not dark. But soft and light, drifting slowly across the wide openness. Their movement is gentle. Almost too slow to follow. And yet, over time, their presence changes the light. In the courtyard, the brightness softens. A passing shade moves across the stone. The temperature shifts slightly. Cooling for a moment. Then warming again as the light returns. A priest standing near the center feels this change. Not as a strong sensation, but as a quiet variation. The sun is still there, but softened. Filtered. The carvings on the walls appear different under this light. Their edges less defined. Their depth more subtle. The entire space feels gentler. As if wrapped in a thin layer of calm. The clouds continue. Moving steadily. Without pause. Without sound. They do not remain. They do not gather. They simply pass. And as they do, the light returns to its usual clarity. The courtyard brightens again. The warmth settles. Nothing is altered. Only experienced. Then released. There are paths within the temple that are walked many times each day. They do not change. They do not shift. And yet, each time they are walked, they carry the quiet presence of the moment. A priest moves along one such path. From the courtyard, through a narrow passage, toward the inner chambers. His steps fall in the same places. The stone beneath him is smooth from years of movement. He does not look down. He does not need to. His body remembers. The walls beside him hold carvings that he has passed many times. He does not stop to observe them. But their presence is known. Felt. As part of the path. The air changes slightly as he moves deeper. Cooler. Stiller. The light softens. Fades. Until only a gentle glow remains. He reaches the inner sanctuary. Pauses. As always. Then enters. Performs what is needed. Small. Quiet actions. Then leaves. Returning along the same path. Nothing has changed. And yet, the path holds the movement. Carries it. Receives it. This repetition does not create weariness. It creates ease. The known becomes calm. The familiar becomes steady. The path itself becomes part of the rhythm. As the sun reaches its highest point, the temple returns to a familiar stillness. The heat settles. Not harsh, but present. The air becomes quieter. Movement slows. The grinding stones rest. The water in the basins remains still. The courtyard holds a gentle pause. Not empty, but resting. A priest sits in a shaded area. His back straight. His hands resting lightly. He does not sleep. He does not move. He simply remains. The sound of the temple fades to almost nothing. Only the faintest movement of air. The distant presence of the river. This stillness is not separate from the day. It is part of it. As necessary as the morning movement. As the evening fading. It allows the rhythm to breathe. To settle. To continue without strain. Time passes. Slowly. Softly. Without being measured. Then, just as gently, movement returns. A worker lifts a tool. A priest rises. The water is touched again. The sound returns. And the day continues. The temple remains. Always. Through each passing moment. Through each subtle change. Through each repetition. It does not seek to become something else. It does not move toward a conclusion. It exists. Fully. In each part of the day. Morning returns. Again. And again. The same light. The same steps. The same care. The same calm. And for the one who listens, resting within this slow unfolding, there is nothing to follow. Nothing to hold onto. Only the gentle presence of time moving without effort. The temple stands. The rhythm continues. Soft. Steady. Endless. The temple remains as it has always been. Not waiting. Not changing. Only continuing. The light of one more day softens across the stone. Not as something new. But as something deeply familiar. The courtyard rests in its steady calm. The columns stand in their quiet strength. The carvings hold their silent stories. Nothing asks to be understood. Nothing asks to be remembered. Everything simply is. A priest walks slowly through the passage. His steps are soft. Even. He does not hurry. There is nowhere to reach. Only the gentle movement from one moment into the next. In the inner sanctuary, the statue stands in stillness. The cloth rests smoothly. The faint glow of a lamp touches the surface. Not to reveal. Only to be present. The air is calm. The space is complete. Outside, the sky begins to soften again. The colors of the day fade quietly. Gold becomes pale. Pale becomes dim. Dim becomes night. The stars return. One by one. Just as they always have. The temple does not mark this as an ending. Because it is not. It is only another gentle turning. Another soft return to stillness. The sounds fade. The movements settle. The breath of the space becomes slow and deep. Everything rests. Nothing is left undone. Nothing is left waiting. The river continues beyond the walls. The wind moves softly through the open gate. The stone holds its quiet. And within it all, the rhythm remains. Unbroken. Unchanging. Endless. The day has passed. But it has not ended. It has only become night. And night, in time, will become morning again. Softly. Slowly. Without effort. Without sound. And so the temple rests. Calm. Still. Complete. And gently, without notice, the story fades into the same quiet it has always held.